I was buried alive and fed through a straw for 16 days. They say the mind breaks before the body does. I don't know who they are, but I know they were right. When they lowered me into the box, I was still awake. The sedative had worn off. I heard the shuffle of dirt beginning to fall like soft rain above my head. I screamed once, but they had packed my mouth with gauze. I bit into it until my teeth cracked. 6 feet under isn't very far when you're the one inside the coffin. I could hear them laughing above me, muffled, distant. One of them called it the fast. Said I'd be purified by the end. Purified of what? I still don't know. The box was wood, pine, thin, sweating. I could feel it against my skin, splinters like teeth. It was just big enough for me to lie flat, but not to move. My arms were bound to my sides. My legs pressed together like I was in a straitjacket. I could barely shift an inch. There was a tube. That was the worst part. They'd fitted it through a hole they drilled near my mouth, like a mockery of a feeding trough. On the other end, somewhere up above, they said they'd nourish me. I remembered gagging when the first feeding came. Thin broth, cold, sour. I could smell it before I tasted it. It wasn't about nutrition. It was about control. On day 1, I panicked. Time was a smear of seconds. I screamed against the gauze. My throat went dry. I slammed the back of my head against the lid until I blacked out. I woke up with blood in my ears. I thought I was dead. Day 2, I started talking to myself. Whispers at first, then humming. I could hear my own heartbeat. It echoed in the coffin like a drum being played underwater. By day 3, I began hallucinating. I saw lights in the darkness, shapes forming behind my eyelids. I saw my mother's face. She was crying, but her tears were worms. They fell from her eyes and burrowed into mine. The broth came once a day, maybe twice. Sometimes I choked on it. Sometimes they didn't send any. I started licking condensation from the wooden lid. I learned the taste of rot. By day 5, I smelled my own flesh. I'd soiled myself. There was nowhere for it to go. The coffin became a stew of waste and breath. The air was thick, warm, heavy. I could feel it coating my lungs like syrup. And still I was awake. Day 6, I bit my own tongue just to feel. I tried to bleed. I wanted to drown in it. But even my blood felt stale. My body was conserving. It was surrendering. The voices above returned. They laughed again. One whispered, "Still alive?" They poured something new down the tube. Not broth, something bitter. My tongue went numb. My vision swam. I think I left my body for a while. I floated above the dirt, watched myself rot. When I returned, it was day 9. I knew it was day 9 because I counted the feedings. I'd scratched marks with my thumbnail into the side of the coffin, into the soft pine when I could. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them. 11 notches. I might have been wrong. The nightmares got worse. Not when I slept, because I didn't. Not really. But in those moments where the line between dream and wakefulness blurred, I saw things in the wood grain. Faces. Fingers. I heard scratching from the outside. Or maybe it was from within. Sometimes I thought I could hear others. Breathing near me. Buried beside me. Once, I heard a baby cry. Day 12. I realized I could feel things crawling. Insects. Ants. Larvae. Something soft wriggled across my cheek. I tried to scream again. My jaw cracked when I did. The broth that day tasted like vinegar and hair. I started biting my lip, chewing it like meat. Something to do, something to taste. It bled. I liked that. I liked that it meant I was still here. Day 14, I prayed. Not to God. He'd stopped listening. I prayed to the box, to the dirt, to the rot. I prayed to be consumed, to be forgotten. I wanted the darkness to become me. I wanted to dissolve. Day 15, voices returned. This time, they didn't laugh. One of them whispered, "Almost ready." I knew what they meant. I knew what they wanted. They weren't just keeping me alive. They were fermenting me, curing me like meat. My skin felt tight, paper thin. My eyes throbbed. I hadn't blinked in days. I didn't know if they still worked. I could only see memory. On day 16, they opened the box. The lid creaked. A sudden flood of light. Burning, brilliant. I screamed, or tried to. My mouth was sewn shut. I don't remember when they did it, but I tasted the thread. Hands pulled me out. My bones cracked. I was limp. I was mud. I was nothing. They stood in a circle around me, robed, silent. The man who called the fast smiled. He said, "You survived. Now you're pure." They lifted me up and carried me back inside. I begged them to bury me again, but my voice was gone. My throat was raw, my tongue a swollen lump of meat behind the stitches. I made sounds like an animal, mewling, clicking. They didn't flinch. They didn't care. I was no longer a person to them. They took me down stone stairs that spiraled so tight I scraped my shoulders against the walls. I left flakes of myself behind like breadcrumbs. The light grew dimmer with each step until there was only torchlight, flickering, oily. The smell hit me first. Rot, old blood, wet iron. It clung to everything. It coated my teeth. It was alive. They brought me to a room, round, windowless, with grooves in the stone floor that drained into a central pit. There were others, not like me, not yet, but broken in other ways. A man with no eyes, just pits packed with wax. A woman whose skin had been scrubbed raw, her flesh pink and weeping. A child with her mouth sewn shut like mine, but her eyes still screamed. They lined us up. The robed man, he had no name, or maybe I had forgotten it, began to chant, low, repetitive, the kind of rhythm that seeps into your skull and takes root. The others joined in. The floor beneath us grew warm, then hot, then unbearably hot. I could feel it through the soles of my feet, except I had no shoes, just blisters. That's when they began to speak about the hollowing, not to us, among themselves. But I heard, I remember, even now, they said the dirt is a womb, that the earth listens, that silence feeds it. They said the fasting breaks the voice. And when the voice breaks, the mind follows. And only then can the true voice be heard. One by one, they brought us to the pit, not to kill us, but to listen. They pressed our heads to the stone edge and waited. At first, there was only silence, then whispers from below. So many voices, not angry, not mournful, just hungry. They told us things, told me things. They said my name, though I hadn't spoken in weeks. They said they'd been watching, that I'd passed the first test. They asked if I wanted to go back into the dirt. I nodded. They laughed, gently, lovingly. They said, "No need. The dirt is already inside you." And I felt it, something shifting, crawling just beneath the surface of my skin, like roots, like worms. I wasn't hollow. I was full of them. They took us back upstairs. Not all of us. The woman with the raw skin had started screaming. Her stitches had come loose. Blood frothed from her mouth. They threw her into the pit. She didn't even hit the bottom. When we returned above, I could see the sun again. I could taste it, even with my mouth sewn. It tasted like dust, like ashes. But they let me out. That's what makes it worse. They let me go. I was dropped at the edge of town, naked, bones visible through paper skin, my tongue dry and black. The police found me crawling toward a gas station, dragging my body like a slug. They thought I was a victim. They were half right. They brought doctors, priests, therapists. I said nothing, not because I couldn't. By then, I had ripped the thread from my mouth. I could speak, but I wouldn't, because when I opened my mouth, I could still hear them, whispering, feeding. They live inside me now. The hollowing never ends. Sometimes I wake up with dirt under my fingernails. Sometimes I find myself digging in my sleep. Sometimes when I'm alone, I press my head to the floor and listen, and they speak to me, and I smile. I started keeping soil in jars. At first, just a handful from the garden, then from the woods, then from graveyards. I told myself I was collecting it, studying it, trying to understand. But that was a lie. I was feeding something. The jars multiplied. My apartment filled with the scent of damp earth. People stopped visiting. The neighbors began complaining. I didn't care, because every time I unscrewed a lid, I could hear them breathing. I slept beside the jars. I pressed my palms into the dirt until the skin blistered and bled. I let it fester, let it rot. They liked that. They whispered louder. They told me I wasn't alone, that others had survived the burial, that some of them didn't even need the box. They'd been born hollow. I began writing their names on my walls. Names I'd never heard. Some in languages I didn't understand. Some in symbols that twisted when I looked away. When the landlord came to evict me, I was waiting at the door. He said my eyes were wrong, like they were turning inward. I laughed because they were. They were showing me things now. Visions in the tile, the mirror, the shadows between seconds. I saw the pit again, deeper this time. No bottom, just mouths, rows and rows of them, swallowing time. That's when I understood. I wasn't the victim. I was the seed. They buried me to plant something. Something that's still growing. Every night, I feel it bloom. My ribs stretch. My spine coils. My fingers itch to dig. I've tried to resist. I've taken pills. Set fires. I even tried to drown myself in bleach. But the dirt always finds me. It waits in the drain, in my shoes, in the folds of my skin. And when I sleep, they whisper again. 6 feet deep. 16 days. 16 more. Let us in. I don't know what happens on the final day. I only know it's coming. Soon. My calendar is blank except for one mark. Red, circled, bleeding through the paper. I didn't make it. And every morning I wait closer to it. Today, I found something under my tongue. A sliver of wood. Pine. Fresh. Still damp. Tomorrow, I know there'll be more. I think I'm becoming the coffin. And last night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't, because I heard scratching, not in the walls. In me, it started behind my sternum. Faint, like the ticking of a clock in a sealed room, then lower by the stomach. Scrape, scratch, pause. Again, something's moving inside. Not like hunger, not like sickness. This is different, purposeful, rhythmic. I lay there with my hands on my chest, too afraid to breathe, and the scratching didn't stop. It responded. It matched my heartbeat. I screamed. No one heard me, or maybe they did and chose not to answer. This morning, the mirror was fogged. I hadn't showered. I hadn't boiled water, but the mirror was fogged, and a single word was written in the condensation. Soon. I don't live alone anymore. Something stands behind me when I walk past glass. Not a reflection, not a shadow, just wrong. Its arms are too long, its head too low. It's always smiling. And my breath. Sometimes it fogs the air, even when the room is warm. Sometimes I see earthworms on the floor where I haven't walked. Sometimes my fingernails fall off in my sleep. I used to think I was possessed, that there was a demon in me. That would have been merciful, but this isn't possession. This is transformation. This is invitation. I'm being hollowed. The way a tree rots from the inside out. Yesterday, I woke up to find someone had drawn a door on my ceiling in charcoal. A perfect square. No handle. Just a symbol in the middle I don't recognize. But my eyes keep returning to it. It pulses. I hear chanting now, even when I plug my ears. I press my head against the walls, and they vibrate. I know it's coming. The red date on the calendar is tomorrow. Tonight is my last night. Not because I'll die, because I'll be opened. I think that's what the 16 days were for. To weaken the shell, to make me soft. And tomorrow, they'll reach through. I can't stop it, but maybe I can warn you. If you've ever woken with soil in your mouth, if you've ever dreamt of being buried and felt peace instead of fear, if you've ever heard your own breath echo like it's inside a box, you're next. The earth remembers your name. The voices know the path. And when they whisper through the cracks, don't answer. Because once they start speaking, they never stop. Someone else is going to wake up inside me. It's the final hour. I know because the lights won't stay on. Every bulb in the apartment is burned out one by one, each with a soft, apologetic pop, like they were too afraid to witness what's about to happen. The clocks are frozen. All of them. 3:33. Every single one. It's in the walls. No under them. It's pacing. No footsteps. Just the sound of something shifting, dragging, like a sack of wet earth being pulled across stone. I think it's waiting for me to give in, to lie down, to make the shape of a coffin with my body, to complete the ritual. The hollowing isn't a process. It's a harvest. I was soil. I was watered, fed through a tube, starred to loosen the spirit, buried to ferment. Now I'm ripe. Time doesn't work here anymore. It's waiting, holding its breath. So am I. I lock the doors, block the windows, pile furniture against every entrance. But it's not going to help. It never was. The danger isn't coming from outside. It's already here. Inside me. It started about an hour ago. My fingers went numb. Not the tingly kind. This was deeper, like something had pinched off the nerves from the inside. I can still see the move, but I don't feel it. Then came the cold. It's not cold in the room, but my bones feel cold. My blood feels like it's thickening, turning into something slower, more ancient. I tried to call someone, anyone, but my phone had already turned itself off. The screen cracked, spiderwebbed across the glass. It showed the reflection of a ceiling, of that charcoal door, and something watching me through it. I can hear it now. I feel it, something unfolding in my spine. My ribs ache. They're bending outward, like wings made of bone. I'm not dying. I'm blooming. I try to gouge it out, whatever's inside me. I dragged a broken piece of mirror across my chest. I cut deep, but there was no blood, just dirt, damp, black, and writhing with movement. Something smiled back through the wound. That's when I knew. I'm not a person anymore. I'm not even a vessel. I'm a door, and they are already turning the handle. The symbols on my wall are glowing now. Softly, they breathe. The jars of soil are rattling, whispering in a language I understand but can't translate. They're calling to others. I am not alone, and neither are you. I think this message is my last. Not because I can't write anymore, but because what comes after this won't be me. I can feel the earth above me again. Not physically, but inside my mind. The weight of it, the pressure. It's like I never left the box. Maybe I didn't. Maybe this was all still underneath. 16 days. 16 whispers. 16 mouths. At midnight, the door opens, and whatever comes out will wear my skin. If you see me after this, don't listen to what I say. Don't follow me. Don't speak my name. Don't look me in the eyes, because I won't be looking back. The dirt will, and the dirt is hungry. Midnight came. I didn't hear it. There was no chime, no ticking, just silence so thick it felt like drowning, a silence with teeth. And then the breath, not mine, not human, a long, ragged inhale from the center of the room. No body, no face, just a pull of air, like the whole apartment had become lungs. And I exhaled. Something left me in that breath, something that had been curled around my spine, behind my heart, in my marrow, something ancient. It woke up. The charcoal door on the ceiling peeled open like a scab. The black inside it wasn't absence. It was movement, a spiral of shapes, all folding inward, forever. Something tried to crawl down from it, but it didn't have a form. It just dripped. Not liquid, not smoke. Something between. Something that made the floor shudder when it touched it. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. My body was already gone. My limbs belonged to them. The door was fully open now. And what came down wasn't a creature. It was a feeling, regret, hunger, worship. It didn't speak aloud. It didn't have to. It was already inside me. You were the seed. Now be the soil. My skin split down the middle. No pain, just release. Fingers came out first, not mine. Pale, jointed wrong, too long. Then a face pressed forward from inside my chest. No eyes, just sockets full of whispering worms. It looked at me, from within me, and it smiled, my mouth open on its own. And a voice poured out, dozens of voices layered atop each other, speaking in rhythms I'd never heard before but instantly understood. They were calling names. Yours might be next. Because here's the truth they never told me when they buried me. The hollowing isn't for the buried, it's for the world. I was the first door, but they are opening many. Every whisper you ignore, every nightmare you forget, every time you wake up with dirt in your bed and call it dust, you are letting them in. And now that they've come through me, they don't need coffins anymore. They just need silence. They just need someone to listen. The worms in my veins are writing a new scripture beneath my skin. I no longer sleep. I no longer eat. I just dig. Everywhere I go, I dig. Under floorboards, behind walls, in strangers' backyards, because they're coming through. And when you hear scratching in your walls, when you feel breath on your neck, but no one is there, when you see someone smile just a second too long, with dirt beneath their nails, it's already too late. You've been chosen. They buried me for 16 days, and now I will bury 16,000. You still think you're safe because you're above ground. That's what I used to believe. That dirt was something below us. That burial was a thing that happened to the dead. But I know better now. The dirt isn't beneath us. It's around us, inside us, waiting. The hollowing taught me this. You don't need a coffin to be buried. You just need to stop resisting. That's how it spreads. Not with claws or blood or death, but with understanding, with yielding. I was the first seed. Now I walk in your cities, your homes, your places of prayer. And no one stops me. No one sees what's behind my smile. Not yet. I carry the soil under my tongue. A handful at a time, pressed between cheek and teeth like old tobacco. And when I speak to others, I drop it behind them. Little piles, little whispers, in train stations, hospitals, daycare centers, funeral homes, anywhere someone might be tired, distracted, lonely, because that's when they hear best. People who've lost everything, people who are ready to let go. Those are the softest hearts, the richest soil, and once they're hollow, they make more. You've seen them. You just don't realize it. People who talk to walls, who never blink, who bury dead animals in neat rows and smile while doing it. They are not sick. They are not mad. They are gardening. And now it's everywhere. Have you noticed the increase in sinkholes? The quiet disappearance of people who were never found? Those weren't accidents. Those were harvests. Roots are growing through your cities, beneath the streets, wrapping around your buildings, silent and slow. The hollowing doesn't rush. It doesn't scream. It waits. It waits for one moment. For your moment, the second you feel the pull, the second you think you hear something calling your name in the soil. That's all it takes. One moment of stillness, one breath too long, and then your chest tightens, your limbs go cold, and you start to listen. I know because I see it happen every day. I walk behind you. I watch you pause, glance over your shoulder, feel that wrongness in your gut that you can't explain. That's not anxiety. That's recognition. Your roots remembering where they came from. It's not over. It never was. You can't stop it. You can't kill the dirt, because the dirt is patient. The dirt is eternal. The dirt wants you back. And when the final day comes, when the last door opens and the soil spills into every crevice of your world, you will thank it, just like I did, just like I still do, because I was buried alive, fed through a straw, and now I carry the seed in me, and I plant it everywhere. I don't need a shovel anymore. I am the shovel. My fingers dig without my permission, in my sleep, while I'm talking, while I'm dreaming with my eyes open. I scratch the walls of public restrooms, claw the undersides of pews, bury pieces of teeth in the sand at playgrounds. I leave trails like a slug, not of slime but of soil, dark, alive, humming with things that have never seen the sun. They told me it would feel good, that once the Halloween was complete, I'd stop hurting. And it's true, I don't hurt anymore. I ache, but not in the way you think. Not like illness, not like sorrow. I ache like a forest aching for fire, like a seed pressing against a shell. There's no room left inside me. My veins don't carry blood. They carry dust. My breath smells like old graves. My spit clings to stone like sap. I whispered to a child in a grocery store last week, said nothing, just a hush into her ear. She stopped, looked up at her mother, and smiled with dirt in her teeth. I whispered to a priest during confession. He wept for hours. The next morning, he buried himself behind the church with a spoon. I never told him what to do. I only unlocked them. They were already soil. Just like you, do you really think you're immune? Because you keep your house clean? Because you pray? Because you keep the lights on at night and the windows sealed shut? The dirt doesn't care. It can crawl through air vents, through your thoughts, through the silence between your own heartbeats. It waits for you to grow tired, and then it shows you what's always been waiting. Beneath your floorboards, behind your walls, inside your bones. I passed someone on the street yesterday who was already halfway hollow. I could hear it in the way their shoes scraped the pavement. Soft, deliberate, like they were walking underground. I could see the smear of soil at the corners of their eyes. They saw me too. We didn't speak. We don't have to anymore. The hollowing is no longer a secret. It's a language, and the world is learning to speak it, one buried word at a time. So this is the last thing I'll write. The last thing I will say before the rest of me is no longer mine. I can feel them just beneath the skin now, pressing up, curling like vines around my ribs. My teeth have begun to loosen, not from decay, but to make room. For what? I don't know. Maybe for something that wants to speak through me. I am not afraid. That's the final lie we tell ourselves, isn't it? That fear keeps us from falling. But I've fallen already. I've gone deep. I've heard what waits. And I understand now. The burial wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The straw wasn't sustenance. It was surrender. Every whisper, every crack in the walls, every moment of silence I mistook for safety. Those were invitations. And I answered. Now I leave this here for you to find. Maybe in a notebook. Maybe in the dark corner of a forum. Maybe in the final voicemail from someone who went missing in the woods. Does it matter? You've read this far. You've listened, which means you've already heard it, too. That faint scratching sound. That pressure in your chest when you lie awake at night, still and silent. That's not your heartbeat. It's a knock from beneath. They're asking come in, and now it's your turn to decide. Will you scream? Will you pray? Will you cover your ears? Or will you lie still and open the door? Because the dirt remembers your name, and it's already begun to spell it. In roots, in worms, in silence. The hollowing has begun, and you are the next seed. The end.